Hello and welcome to Scotland. I hope you're all well. This weekend we went first down to South Wales for a family holiday, and then yesterday we drove all the way up to just south of Glasgow. So this week we're in Scotland. Today we're going to go up through Glencoe and drive along Loch Lomand and up to Fort William, and then we're going over onto Skye, and then after a couple of days there we're going to go on to Mull. So this is the first time I've been to Scotland other than sort of going to the Edinburgh Festival on a train. So it's the first time I've driven up. My goodness, it's a long way. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the great photography locations. The weather is set to not very good. The advantage is that there are no midges, which is great. Disadvantage is we may be in for a lot of grey weather. So in this video I'm going to take you to a couple of locations that I've not been to before, and hopefully talk you through how I set up the shots and hopefully get some pretty good shots. Fingers crossed. In the video I'm going to give you some information about the kit that I brought, the places that I stayed, the routes that we took, the campsites that we stayed at, where we found the cheapest fuel, and the general costs of everything that we incurred. We drove about 1,500 miles from Cambridge to South Wales up to south of Glasgow at Murkirk, and then through the Highlands to Skye. We spent a couple of days on Skye, and then came back from Skye and took the ferry from Oban to Mull and spent a night in Mull before returning home. So while the campsite at Murkirk was friendly, there was a lot of rubbish left right by our site, which wasn't great. The site was a little unloved, but the people were absolutely fantastic, and the washrooms and that were excellent, so that was fine for what we needed. So this was the route we took. We started off in Murkirk and went through the centre of Glasgow and to Balloch, where we then turned eastward around the east coast of Loch Lomand and went to Balmaha. We didn't go up the famous Conic Hill, which is here, but then returned and drove up the west coast of Loch Lomand. We stopped near the top of Loch Lomand, and although it was very grey, lots of muted colours, it really suited a little bit of long exposure. In terms of kit, I bought my Fuji X-T3. I brought the 10 to 24mm wide-angled lens, the 18 to 55 zoom lens, and the 55 to 200 telephoto zoom. I thought that covered everything that I needed, and I was trying to bring as little kit as possible. That's what I brought. I also brought the case magnetic circular filters, of which I've got a kit which includes circular polarizer, a 6-stop, a 10-stop, and maybe a 2-stop filter. And drove up the west coast of Loch Lomand, all the way up to Fort William via Glencoe. The next night we stopped in Glen Nevis, and that was a big site, not too busy because of the time of the year, and there is a dog-friendly pub about half a mile away, but the dog-friendly part is sitting on tables that are covered but are outside, but it was cold and wet when we were there. So in the end, we got takeaway from that pub and brought it back to the van. The campsite was incredibly well maintained and the shower block was excellent. So welcome to Glen Nevis. Well, Glen Nevis. Glen Nevis is up here behind me. Absolutely torrential rain all last night, and as you can probably hear, it's also raining this morning. But I've been trying to get a picture of Glen Nevis. I'm using my 55-200 lens and really trying to close in on the peak and the clouds going over the top. And then I turned around and I saw, well, let's just turn you around here. And then that's my camper van, that's where I'm camping. But as you can probably see on the back of the camera here, the trees in the foreground are just turning to autumnal colours and really brought out in separation from the pines behind. So the lesson is, always look behind you. There's always something else. The great thing about the 55-200 is you can really pick out details, and that's really worked on this particular shot. So hello, an amazing thing happened. It started raining yesterday lunchtime about midday when we were just south of Glasgow and it's rained for 24 hours. We've now driven on to Skye. An amazing thing, lunchtime today we were just a few miles from the bridge of Skye. We stopped at the Eliean Donan Castle and the sun came out. It's fantastic. We've powered on and we've reached the Old Man of Storr, which is sort of just up there over behind me. I'm a little out of breath because according to my phone I've climbed 48 floors in the last half an hour. It's taken me half an hour to get here. It's going to take me about another 15 minutes to get to the top there. I think it's going to be really blustery up there, so I'm going to try and take a couple of pictures. I think we're probably on the wrong side of the day. The Old Man is a little bit in shadow, but the weather forecast for tomorrow is horrid and I didn't fancy coming up here in the rain, so I've come up today and I hope to be able to get a shot in. Right, so I sort of made it. I've walked up here in just over an hour. I haven't quite made it to the top, but I'm giving up because my asthma and my long COVID has really taken a beating. But I've climbed over 100 floors according to my phone, and I've made it up here. Obviously got the Old Man of Storr behind me. We've still got quite a lot of clouds and a bit of blue sky, and it's not very hazy, and when the wind drops it's pretty cool. So I'm just waiting for some side light on the Old Man. Take a picture. I'm shooting at 160 f9 and whatever the seconds is. I've got a CPL on just to sort of bring out the contrast. Right, the wind's getting up. Let's get the picture. So we finished the day in Dunvegan, which is on the other side of Skye, and we got this fantastic campsite where we're parked up. We're just going to cook some dinner, and just the sunset has really done us proud. So that's it for today. I hope I've got a nice picture of this sunset, and if I have, here it is. The third location we stopped in was in Dunvegan on the loch in Skye itself. This was quite a small site, but it was well maintained, and you could pretty much pick your own site. We picked one that looked straight over the loch, but I think pretty much all of them did that. The shower block was very good, and there was a fish and chips van that came each night that we were there, so that was good if you just you haven't got food that you want to cook yourself. We spent day 3 on Skye. The night had stayed dry, and we started the day looking at seals basking on the rocks in the sun. We had a hot breakfast and then headed to Uig and then Fairy Glen. We had a late lunch in Portree before heading to Neist Point in the late afternoon. I was looking forward to visit Neist Point, the most westerly point on Skye facing the full force of western gales. The road down to the point is somewhat sketchy, and you hope you won't meet another vehicle coming in the opposite direction because there's just not enough room to pass. It's a short walk from where we parked up to the vantage point. It was fine until the wind picked up. I set the tripod as low as possible and held on strongly to the tripod when hitting the shutter release. I took this shot at 1/50th of a second and then took a 15-second shot using a 10-stop ND filter before blending the 2 images in Photoshop to get this final image. After a night of heavy rain, I woke up on the second morning in Skye to grey and muted colours, and I decided without getting out of bed I was going to do some ICM straight from my campervan. I love ICM at coastal locations as the images are impressionistic and give a sense of the coast without the detail that can sometimes distract or detract from sharper images. Here you get the muted tones of the beach, the loch, the mountains and the sky. The effect is like a painting. And the great thing about ICM is that every time you take an image this way, it's totally unique and unrepeatable. And the results I find are very calming. After taking these pictures, we packed up the van and we drove back through Skye, over the bridge and back via Fort William and down to Oban, where we caught the ferry to Mull. The campsite in Salen was rather exposed to some heavy winds and rain overnight, but in the morning I went down to the coast and captured these anchor points with a 4-second exposure and desaturating the image with some colour grading gave them a tone that matched the day. The site was well maintained, and although the shower block were sort of prefabricated, they were excellent. We then drove to Tombermory and took rather postcardy type images of this beautiful coastal town before heading back to the ferry to the mainland and the end of our fantastic trip. The ferry from Oban over onto Mull, we paid for a van, 2 people and a dog. That was about £45 for the return journey. In terms of fuel, the cheapest we found, ironically, or somewhat surprisingly, was actually on Skye at the co-op about 5 miles once you get over the bridge. So if you're making this trip, I would suggest you stop in there. I think we paid £1.76 for a litre, whereas just about everywhere else was £1.83, and one place we saw was actually £2.12, I think. That was on the road from Fort William through Glencoe. All of the campsites were sort of between £30 and £40 a night, including the electrical hookup. Thank you if you're still watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Maybe some of the information was helpful. And I hope that you get a chance to go and make a similar journey. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and perhaps consider subscribing. Thanks very much for watching, and until the next one, bye for now.